Hi, my name is Nils. This is a response to AZ Superman01 on his video log Tough Questions for Christians number 5, The Purpose of Hell. Very good video. I agreed with everything that you said. I think you make a fantastic point for this. If you did want to research this subject a little further, and maybe for those who don't know, the book by David Mills, Atheist Universe, very good. Why God didn't have a thing to do with it. He does elaborate quite heavily on those 4 reasons for hell. So if you did want to investigate that, check the book out. It's really well done. David Mills is a fantastic author. Now, I was looking down at some of the comments made in response to this video, and frankly I find them lacking. A lot of ad hoc argumentation, a lot of arguments that also ignore the fact that, hypothetically speaking, it was God who created hell in the first place. Omniscience, of course, comes into play here. So we are still stuck with these 4 reasons to have a hell in the first place. So there really isn't much of a way out of this conundrum. I did want to just push you maybe in a direction which is linked but slightly different. It's the notion of free will in heaven. Now, free will is essentially what brings our downfall. We exert our free will, we utilize our supposedly God-given free will, and we get punished for using it. Now, we're told that God doesn't want robots. He doesn't want people who just obey without thinking. He wants people to think and utilize their free will, but he hopes that we will, go his way, which really begs the question of why he gave us free will in the first place, since it causes us such a lot of suffering. But nevertheless, if we get in heaven, we have to ask ourselves, are we allowed to do everything that we wish to do? Do we have free will? If the answer is no, well, then we are merely robots, and we are told initially that this God doesn't wish for robots. So it's clearly not a negative. But if we look at the affirmative, God has given us free will, and even in heaven we can utilize it, then clearly it is possible for us to fall from grace. Now, whether or not God has a secondary or infinite regression of heavens and hells thereafter, or whether he just simply chucks out everybody who disobeys, that's a question for Christian literalists to answer. But it is an interesting question. It is an interesting thing to consider, because it would ultimately mean that eternal salvation is not eternal. It depends on your behavior. Now, there's nothing about this written in the Bible, of course, so it's pretty much up to the theologian, those peddlers of mass ad hoc argumentation, to figure out an answer to that. But yes, you could fall from grace once you have been saved, which is truly ironic. And then there's a second point I wanted to bring up, is that, of course, the notion of hell that you and I talk about quite often as fire and brimstone is in fact not the original version of hell. The Jewish word for hell is Sheol, which simply means the common grave. That's the translation for it. In Judaism, in Old Testament theology, there is no fire and brimstone. You die, and then you're judged. If you are judged to be a good soul, whatever soul may mean, you go to heaven. If you aren't, then you die, and that's it. Well, you remain dead. There is no continuation of the consciousness. You simply cease to exist. So all of these apologists who are trying to defend God's punishment or God's wisdom or whatever it is that they are trying to defend are really defending an imaginary battle, because they are wrong in the first place. The Bible only later comes in with this notion of fire and brimstone, but it's a later add-on, it's a later addition that really has no significance when it comes to the Old Testament theology. Are we to believe that before God used to save the good and then simply let the damned just simply remain dead and remain in oblivion. And then suddenly he realized, with the advent of the new covenant, that, well, those guys who've been fading away into oblivion have been getting away with a lot here. Let's bring them back and torture them for all eternity. So they're fighting an imaginary battle. They needn't do it. If they stick with the original biblical version of Sheol as the common grave, as a cessation of consciousness, then the problems disappear. Or do they? But that's another question altogether. But thanks ever so much for the video log. Certainly food for thought. And if you haven't already, and if your viewers haven't already, Atheist Universe by David Mills touches on the whole subject. It's a whole paragraph, it's a whole chapter rather, several pages, really good read. Peace, my friend.